Hi everyone, I'm HGParry. I'm the author of The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep, a story in which literary characters run amok in central Wellington, and more recently, The Shadow Histories duology, which together tell the story of the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and the Napoleonic Wars in a world where magic exists but is forbidden to all but the aristocracy, at least at first. So the second and final book of this has just come out. This is it. It's called A Radical Act of Free Magic, and I'm going to read to you from a section right at the start in which 14-year-old Napoleon Bonaparte gets a visit from a mysterious stranger. Enjoy. Brienne-le-Château, 1783. It was after midnight in the boys' dormitory, and Napoleon de Bonaparte was supposed to be sleeping. The room was frostbitten and spare, little more than a monastic cell, and a single thin blanket on each bed seemed designed only to taunt the boys with the promise of warmth. When Napoleon had arrived at the military academy 4 years ago, the harshness had startled him despite his best efforts to pretend otherwise. Not just the bitter cold, but the hard beds, the constant hunger, the rigid discipline, the deliberate isolation from family or home or anything soft and familiar. He was used to it now. The mattress bit into his back, and he shifted only out of habit. There was never any chance of being comfortable. At 14, he was a dark-eyed, smouldering contradiction of temper and discipline, arrogance and ambition, intellect and athleticism, and he had never been comfortable since he had left Corsica. And yet, after a time, perhaps he did sleep after all. The dormitory around him grew light, as though the sun had come out. He stepped forward, wondering, and only then realized he was standing. The air was lazy with warmth and the scent of the sea and voices drifting through an open window. The room wasn't the dormitory anymore, but a wide, spacious sitting room, with pale wallpaper and soft carpet and curtains that stirred in the faintest breeze. The furniture was graceful, elegant. A sofa of gentle blue, a clock adorned with gold, a table on which a tea set rested. He knew, without being able to say how, that there were family nearby, separated from him only by thin walls and not by a vast ocean. Napoleon's breath caught and his throat tightened. He knew where he was, but he had not seen it for 4 years. He had tried not to see it even in his dreams. "You're home, I take it," a voice came. Napoleon turned sharply. Only then did he see the man standing beside the door. A tall man, slim, his face half in shadow. His light, clear voice must have spoken in Corsican, for Napoleon had no need to translate it in his head. There was something odd about it. The sounds altered before they reached Napoleon's ears, or perhaps they never touched his ears at all. "It's very pleasant," the man added. His eyes flickered over the room. "I had a home like this once. From my room I could always hear the sea." Napoleon gathered every ounce of his 14-year-old self-possession. "Where are we?" he demanded. "I'm not at home, I know. And who are you?" "You're quite right, you're not at home," the man said. "You're still in France, safe in your bed. This is just the inside of your head, with a little of mine thrown in to make weight. As to who I am, well, let's just say I'm a friend of yours. Perhaps. I don't have friends in France." "No." It might have been a question, or a statement. "Why not?" He shrugged his thin shoulders and squared his chin. His eyes were suspiciously hot, as they never were in daylight. His childhood home was too close about him. A tug for homesickness buried like a shard of glass deep in his heart. "I'm Corsican. I'm smaller than some of them. I don't speak French well enough. My parents aren't wealthy, and they oppose French control. I'm barely an aristocrat. One of those, or all of them, I don't know. I don't care. I'm not afraid of them." "Do you want them to be afraid of you?" "I don't care what they think of me." It wasn't true, and he suspected the man knew that. He wanted them to respect him. "I'm in France to learn." "To learn what?" "Anything I can to become a soldier. History, mathematics, tactics, magic." "You're good at tactics," the man said. "I've watched you at your games in the schoolyard. Your fellow students respect you then, if that comforts you. You're not terribly strong in magic, though. I can feel mesmerism flickering in your blood, but only weakly. There's very little you can do with it." "I don't need to do anything with it. The theory is interesting enough. And besides, other people's magic is stronger. I want to learn about it before I command men in battle. There are ways it can be used, even with the Concord. Wouldn't you like to use your own? For what? He considered his own question without giving the stranger a chance to answer. His eyes were dry again. It's a good pitch for animals. I suppose I could calm a frightened horse, or summon a dog with a message across a field. Tiny things like that can turn a battle at times. What about on your men? He laughed. I won't need mesmerism to command my men. That's what being a commander means. The stranger smiled too. For just an instant, his face came out of the shadows. How would you like to command more than me? He asked. Not today, of course, but some day. It would depend. Napoleon knew better than to put any faith in words. People said all kinds of things, all the time. Besides, he wasn't convinced this wasn't all a dream. But somehow, perhaps because the dream was so strange, he felt a cautious thrill. It would depend on whom I would command, and at what cost. It's early days yet, the stranger said. It might come to nothing, but there's a threat brewing over the ocean, and I might need someone to become the leader of France. I'm Corsican, Napoleon said. I hate France. His new friend nodded. Excellent. I think you might do very nicely. Okay, so that's from Radical Active Free Magic. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good lockdown, stay safe, read lots of books, and thank you again for listening.